Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Archuleta and Ms. Seymour, just want to remind you that you're under oath, and I have a series of questions that follow on to Carolyn Maloney's questions. It was reported in the Wall Street Journal that a company named Cytec has related that they were involved in discovering the breach that apparently has been, according to this article, linked to Chinese hackers. OPM's press secretary said the assertion that Cytec was somehow responsible for the discovery of the intrusion into OPM's network during a product demonstration is inaccurate. Cytec related that they were invited in by OPM, that they, Ms. Seymour, do I have your attention? That they were invited in by OPM, and that their equipment was run on OPM, and that their equipment indicated that there had been an intrusion of your system, and they notified you. But your response officially from OPM is that it's inaccurate, that they were not involved. Ms. Archuleta, I believe you were asked this question previously, were you not? And you said that they were not involved. You're reminding you both that you're under oath. Anybody want to change their answer? Was Cytec involved in the discovery of this data breach? Ms. Archuleta?
No, they were not.
Ms. Seymour?
No, sir, they were not.
Okay, now reminding you again that you're under oath. Was Cytec ever brought in to run a scan on OPM's equipment?
Cytec was engaged with OPM, and we had we were looking at using their tool in our network. We gave them, it is my understanding that we gave them some information to demonstrate whether their tool would find information on our network, and that in doing so, they did indeed find those indicators on our network. Great. Well, thanks, Ms. Seymour, because
I sit on the Intelligence Committee, and Cytec Services President and CEO Ben Cotton and his Vice President of Technology Development, John Irvin, came in and briefed the Intelligence Committee staff, and they relate that they were given access to your system, ran their processes, and their processes discovered it. And I think you're confirming this now, where previously it was denied that they had any involvement. So you want to relate again, Ms. Seymour, what exactly did Cytec do? I mean, were they given access to your system? Did they run it on your system?
Here's what I understand, sir. OPM discovered this activity on its own.
That wasn't the question, Ms. Seymour, and I'm assuming that you'd have greater than an understanding that you'd actually know, considering you are the Chief Information Officer and you're testifying before us as to how this happened, and there's already been a news article in this. So please tell us clearly, what access was Cytec given to your system?
I'll be happy to answer your question, sir. I'm trying to explain to you how Cytec had access. OPM discovered the breach. We were doing market research, and we had purchased some licenses for Cytec's tool. We wanted to see if that tool set would also discover what we had already discovered. So yes, they put their tools on our network, and yes, they found that information as well.
So you were tricking them? You already knew this, but you brought them in and said, Shazam, you caught it too?
Sir,
it seems highly unlikely, don't you think?
We do a lot of research before we decide on what tools we're going to buy for our network.
Now, this is, at that point, you hadn't removed the system from your system? I mean, you knew it was there, you brought them in, and their system discovered it too, which means it would have to have been continuously running, and that personnel information would have been still at risk, correct?
No, sir, we had latent malware on our system that we were watching, that we had quarantined.
And you had quarantined it, so it was no longer operating?
That's correct.
Okay, well, clearly you're going to have to give us all an additional briefing, and certainly the Intel Committee staff an additional briefing on exactly how you did this, because, you know, Cytec's relating what they did is very compelling, and quite frankly, what you say sounds highly suspicious, that you would have brought them in, tricked them to see if they could discover it, something you've already discovered. I mean, why would you need them if you've already discovered it? And then further tricked them to say, well, you don't really have the system on your system anymore? It's just... It contradicts in so many ways that defies logic. But the other thing I want to ask you, Ms. Archuleta, is on your SF-86 forms that were compromised.
Yes.
When we sound like a form, when you say a form, it just sounds so minor. But this is the form. This is the security form 86 that people looking to work on national security and to get clearance have to fill out. It's not just their Social Security, but their Social Security number is all over this. What are you doing? I have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in my district, my community. There's a number of people who had to fill these out to be able to serve their country. What are you doing about the additional information that's in this form that's being released and that's out there about these individuals?
I filled out exactly the same form. And
I didn't ask that. I asked you, what are you doing? Because it's not about just identity theft. This is not just their credit cards and their checking accounts. What are you doing about the rest of the information that's in here about counseling them, assisting them?
I've just used that by way of example that I understand what is in the form, personally and as the director of OPM. And because at OPM, as you know, we do federal background investigations, and I am clearly aware of what's in the form. As I mentioned in my testimony, that we are working with a very dedicated team to determine what information was taken from those forms and how we can begin to notify the individuals who were affected by that. That form is very complicated, and that is why I am very, very careful about not putting out a number that would be inaccurate. That is a complicated form with much information. It has PII and other information, so we want to be sure that as we look at how we protect the individuals who completed those forms, that we're doing everything we can, and we're looking at a wide range of options to do that. This is an effort that that was working on together throughout government, not just OPM. We're all concerned about the data that was lost as a result of this breach by these hackers who were able to come into our systems. And I will repeat again, but for the fact that we found this malware would still be in our systems.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank them for at least acknowledging that SciTech had access to their equipment and that did run and did identify this, even though they previously denied SciTech's involvement. Thank you.
Thank the gentleman.